Look at the person sitting next to you, or think about the last person you had a conversation with. Within the first 3 seconds, your brain made a dozen subconscious calculations about them. You checked their posture, their blinking rate, the microtensions around their mouth. You did this to feel safe. Now imagine someone who doesn't just read those signs, imagine someone who rewrites them. Most people walk through life wearing a psychological mask. It's a defense mechanism. We hide our insecurities, our deceits, and our deepest flaws behind a wall of polite nods and rehearsed smiles. We think we're safe. But there is a specific, rare classification of human being walking among us right now who acts as a living, breathing, universal solvent to that mask. The moment you step into their radius, your mask doesn't just slip, it shatters. In the study of human behavior, we talk a lot about empaths, people who absorb the energy of a room. But there is an apex tier, a variant so distinct, so jarringly powerful, that ancient cultures didn't just respect them, they feared them. They called them the Heyoka, the sacred clown, the backward walker. A Heyoka is not the gentle healer who cries because you're crying. A Heyoka is a psychological mirror. If you are carrying hidden arrogance, they will suddenly become hypercritical. If you are drowning in unexpressed grief, they will suddenly make you laugh until you cry. They reflect your exact internal state back at you, amplified by 10, forcing you to look at the ugly, raw truth of who you are in that exact moment. If you have ever felt like an absolute alien in social settings, if you have noticed that people either intensely love you or become deeply, unaccountably aggressive toward you for no apparent reason, you are likely operating with this exact psychological blueprint. Over the next few minutes, we are breaking down the 7 precise, undeniable behavioral signs that you aren't just sensitive, you are a Heyoka. We are going to decode the exact mechanism of how your brain processes deception, why your presence actively disrupts the emotional equilibrium of any room you walk into, and the severe, hidden cost of carrying this psychological weight. You need to pay attention to every single one of these signs, because if you possess even 3 of them, you are currently mismanaging a level of influence that can either dismantle a liar in seconds or completely exhaust your own neural system. By the end of this breakdown, you will finally understand why your entire life has felt like a psychological chess match you never asked to play, and exactly how to master the board. Most people believe that power is loud. They think it's found in a dominant posture, a booming voice, or the ability to control a room through sheer compliance. They are wrong. True power is quiet. It is the ability to alter the behavioral baseline of an entire room without uttering a single syllable. And that is the exact footprint of a Heyoka. When we analyze human behavior, we look for anomalies. The Heyoka is the ultimate anomaly. They don't fit into standard societal algorithms because their entire existence is designed to disrupt them. If you suspect you carry this weight, look for these 7 precise behavioral signs. The first sign is the immediate polarization of the people around you. When a Heyoka enters an environment, people react violently, either with profound comfort or unprovoked defensiveness. Why? Because you are a mirror. When a highly insecure person looks at you, they don't see you. They see their own insecurity reflected back in high definition. They experience cognitive dissonance and project that internal chaos onto you. If people frequently get defensive around you when you've done nothing wrong, you are mirroring their shadow. Standard empaths seek harmony. They soothe, they pacify, they absorb the blow. The Heyoka does the exact opposite. You heal through disruption. If a room is suffocating under a blanket of fake politeness, you will instinctively say the one absurd, humorous, or brutally honest thing that breaks the tension. You use humor and unconventional behavior as a scalpel to cut through social performance. You don't want people to feel comfortable, you want them to be authentic. You possess an involuntary, hyper-acute tracking system for human deception. When someone lies to you, it doesn't just register as a suspicion, it manifests as a physical sensation. You notice the split-second asymmetry in their smile, the subtle voice pitch shift, the momentary freeze in their respiration. Because you see the gap between who they are pretending to be and who they actually are. Deceit feels like nails on a chalkboard to your nervous system. You can read any social dynamic flawlessly. You know exactly what to say to blend into any subculture, executive boardroom, or casual gathering. You have the ultimate toolkit for social compliance, yet you choose not to use it. You choose isolation. You would rather sit alone in a room than participate in a highly orchestrated social script. Your solitude isn't a sign of weakness. It's a necessary strategy to decompress from the massive amounts of emotional data you process daily. A Heyoka approaches problems from angles that make conventional thinkers deeply uncomfortable. When everyone else is looking forward, you are looking backward. When the group panics over a crisis, you find yourself strangely calm, tracking the hidden opportunity. When the group celebrates a superficial victory, you are the one quietly observing the structural flaws they ignored. You constantly challenge the status quo, not out of a desire to rebel, but because you literally see the matrix of cause and effect differently. People tell you things they have never told anyone else, often within minutes of meeting you. Total strangers will confess their deepest regrets, their hidden crimes, or their childhood traumas to you at a grocery store or an airport terminal. Your neural frequency bypasses their standard psychological guardrails. Without trying, you extract the deepest, most guarded elements of the human psyche just by holding space. Your body acts as a secondary processing unit for the environment. You don't just perceive emotional states, your physiology mimics them. If someone near you is hiding a severe anxiety attack behind a calm face, your heart rate will begin to spike. If they are carrying deep, unexpressed physical exhaustion, your energy levels will suddenly bottom out. You are a biological tuning fork, vibrating at the exact frequency of the hidden reality around you. Carrying this blueprint is not a spiritual luxury. It is a severe, high-stakes operational reality. If you recognize these signs in yourself, you must stop viewing your sensitivity as a vulnerability. You are not broken. You are not socially defective. You are an evaluator of truth. Once you understand that your purpose is not to fit into the social machinery, but to keep it honest, the isolation stops hurting. The chaos stops draining you. You stop absorbing the poison of the room, and you start controlling the cure. Master your microsignals, protect your boundaries, and accept the weight of the mirror. The first and most volatile indicator that you are operating with the psychological blueprint of a Heyoka is what can only be described as the mirror effect. This is not the passive, gentle mirroring taught in standard behavioral sales courses, where you consciously copy someone's posture or speech rate to build rapport. This is an involuntary, high-definition psychological reflection that happens entirely on a subconscious level. When you walk into an environment, your internal mechanism acts as an unblemished, hyper-clear mirror to the exact psychological reality of whoever is standing across from you. Because of this, you do not experience normal social interactions. Instead, you trigger immediate, intense polarization. People will either feel an instant, deep, almost spiritual devotion to your presence, or they will display an unprovoked, highly aggressive defensiveness toward you before you have even spoken a single word. To understand why this happens, you have to look at the mechanics of human insecurity and projection. Most people spend an immense amount of neural energy maintaining a specific public persona. They want to be seen as confident, kind, intelligent, or powerful, while actively suppressing their opposite traits, their arrogance, their deep-seated inadequacies, their hidden malicious intents, or their profound fear of rejection. This suppressed material is what Carl Jung referred to as the shadow. When a normal person interacts with someone else, they can usually maintain their mask because the other person is also playing the social game, ignoring the microsignals of deceit to keep the peace. But the Heyoka breaks the game. Your energetic and psychological frequency is so clear that it strips away the operational buffer between a person's conscious mask and their suppressed shadow. When a highly insecure or narcissistic individual looks at you, they do not actually see you. They see the raw, ugly, high-definition truth of their own internal chaos reflected right back at them through your eyes, your posture, and your quiet observation. This creates immediate, severe cognitive dissonance within their brain. Their ego cannot handle the sudden, unfiltered exposure of their own flaws, so it must find a target to blame for this intense internal discomfort. Because you are the source of the reflection, their brain rationalizes that you are the threat. They project their own self-hatred and hidden malice onto you, resulting in unprovoked hostility, subtle backhanded compliments, passive-aggressive remarks, or immediate exclusion from the group. They are reacting to themselves, but they are aiming the weapon at you. Conversely, individuals who have done the difficult internal work of accepting their flaws will experience the exact opposite reaction. When an authentic, self-aware person enters your radius, the mirror reflects truth, safety, and psychological freedom. They will feel an instant magnetic pull toward you, confessing secrets or letting down their guard within minutes, because their subconscious recognizes that they no longer have to carry the exhausting weight of a performance around you. If you have spent your entire life wondering why you are constantly the lightning rod in social situations, why a stranger in a meeting will suddenly snap at you for no apparent reason, or why an acquaintance will suddenly treat you like an enemy while everyone else thinks they are perfectly pleasant, you must realize that you are simply tracking the diagnostic output of their hidden psyche. You are not doing anything wrong. You are simply existing as a living, breathing, behavioral diagnostic tool that forces the hidden truth of the human ego directly to the surface. The second defining sign of a Heyoka is the disruption of social equilibrium, a behavioral mechanism that operates in direct opposition to standard empathetic behavior. In the study of interpersonal dynamics, we classify most highly sensitive people as absorbers or pacifiers. When a standard empath walks into a room thick with tension, anger, or unexpressed grief, their survival instinct is to smooth things over. They smile more, they soften their voice, and they attempt to absorb the negative energy like a psychological sponge to bring the room back to a peaceful baseline. The Heyoka, however, behaves like a behavioral disruptor. Your evolutionary purpose is not to pacify the room, it is to shatter the illusion of fake harmony. You possess an instinct that recognizes that false peace is simply a breeding ground for psychological decay, and instead of protecting the comfort of the group, you use radical subversion to force authentic human expression to the surface. This disruption manifests most frequently through the precise deployment of humor, absurdity, or an almost shocking level of raw truth. When a social setting becomes stagnant, performative, or choked by unspoken tension, something inside your neural system triggers an intense urge to break the script. You might tell a bizarre joke that completely derails a stiff conversation, call out an obvious but ignored elephant in the room with casual indifference, or adopt a completely contrarian perspective just to see how the participants react. To the untrained observer, this might look like eccentric behavior, attention-seeking, or a lack of social grace. In reality, it is a sophisticated, instinctive tool for behavioral extraction. By throwing a wrench into the predictable machinery of social etiquette, you instantly break the behavioral baselines of everyone around you. When people are shocked, confused, or laughing hysterically, their carefully rehearsed psychological defenses drop for a split second, and in that micro moment, you get a completely unfiltered look at who they actually are under the mask. This approach aligns perfectly with the ancient tribal archetype of the contrarian or the sacred clown. Historically, these individuals were given full societal license to walk backward, wear clothing inside out, and mock the chief or the sacred rituals during times of crisis. They were not viewed as jesters, but as essential medicine, because the tribe understood that when a system becomes too rigid or too dishonest, it collapses from within. The Heyoka serves as that exact immune response in modern social circles. You are the individual who heals through discomfort. If a friend is trapping themselves in a cycle of self-pity, you do not coddle them. You offer a sharp, witty perspective that forces them to laugh at their own absurdity. If a corporate meeting is gridlocked because everyone is terrified of offending the dominant ego in the room, you are the one who casually drops the truth that everyone else was thinking but was too cowardly to say. You act as a psychological catalyst, triggering the exact breakthrough or emotional release that the environment is desperately crying out for, even if it means you have to play the villain or the fool to achieve it. You accept the social awkwardness and the temporary friction because your system fundamentally cannot tolerate the suffocation of a lie, making your presence an active, unpredictable agent of psychological evolution wherever you go. The third critical marker is an involuntary, high-definition tracking system for human deception that transforms your daily life into a continuous exercise in behavioral interrogation. While most individuals rely on general intuition or a vague gut feeling to determine if someone is lying, a Heyoka operates with an advanced, real-time diagnostic overlay that monitors human behavior at the millisecond level. You do not consciously try to analyze the people you converse with. Your nervous system simply captures and cataloged microsignals automatically. The human brain is incredibly sloppy when it is trying to maintain a fabrication, and it leaves behind an extensive trail of physiological and behavioral crumbs. For a Heyoka, these crumbs are not invisible. They are blindingly obvious. You instantly register the split-second asymmetry of a forced smile, where the zygomatic major muscles pull up the corners of the mouth, but the orbicularis oculi muscles around the eyes fail to engage. You catch the sudden microscopic freeze in someone's respiratory pattern the moment a sensitive question is asked, or the subtle pitch shift in their vocal cords caused by the involuntary constriction of the throat under stress. This level of perception goes far beyond the superficial tricks popularized in pop psychology. You are tracking the deep, systemic friction that occurs when a human being attempts to project a reality that contradicts their internal truth. When someone lies to you, it does not merely register as a cognitive data point. It manifests as a direct physical aversion within your own body. It can feel like a sudden, unexplained wave of nausea, a sharp spike of anxiety, or a sensory reaction akin to hearing nails scraped across a chalkboard. Your system fundamentally rejects the dissonance of deceit. Because you see the immense gap between who a person is pretending to be and the actual fragile reality of who they are in that exact moment, you possess an uncanny ability to read between the lines of any narrative presented to you. You can listen to a highly polished, charismatic speaker who has an entire room nodding in agreement, yet feel completely detached and entirely unswayed because your eyes are locked onto the microtremors in their hands or the subtle verbal distancing strategies they are using to avoid taking accountability. Living with this human lie detector capability creates a profound sense of psychological isolation. You are constantly forced to witness the small daily betrayals and superficialities that keep polite society functioning. You see the fake compliments, the hidden jealousies, the subtle manipulations, and the quiet power plays that occur in casual conversations among friends, family, and colleagues. Most people are completely blind to these dynamics, or they choose to ignore them to maintain social harmony. The Heyoka does not have the luxury of choice. You see it all, unfiltered and in high definition. This makes it incredibly difficult to engage in standard small talk or to tolerate individuals who operate entirely from a place of superficial prestige and ego. Your brain is constantly seeking structural integrity in human character, and when you are forced to interact with someone whose words, body language, and internal emotional state are all firing in completely different directions, it exhausts your neural system. You are effectively holding a master key to the human subconscious, tracking the hidden motives of everyone around you while maintaining a completely neutral exterior so they never realize exactly how much of their inner world they have just exposed. The fourth sign is the outcast paradox, a psychological state where you possess the ultimate behavioral toolkit for social mastery, yet choose absolute solitude instead. Because your brain processes micro-expressions, vocal inflections, and emotional shifts at an elite level, You are fully capable of becoming the ultimate social chameleon. If you wanted to, you could easily read any room, calculate exactly what the dominant personalities want to hear, and adjust your posture, tone, and vocabulary to blend flawlessly into an executive boardroom, a high-stakes negotiation, or a casual social circle. You know exactly how to mirror people to build rapid rapport, how to use touch and spacing to establish compliance, and how to command authority using quiet confidence. You hold all the cards required to play the game of social status, prestige, and networking at the highest possible level. Yet, the paradox of the Heyoka is that despite having the keys to social dominance, you instinctively choose to walk away from the board. This rejection of the social game is not born out of social anxiety, fear, or a lack of communication skills. It is a calculated defensive strategy for neural survival. When you enter a public space, your brain does not just perceive information, it actively digests it. While a normal person walks into a party and sees a group of people drinking and laughing, a Heyoka walks into that same room and sees a chaotic web of unspoken tensions, hidden infidelities, suppressed financial anxieties, masking behaviors, and desperate pleas for validation. Processing this high-volume stream of raw human subconscious data requires an immense amount of neural energy. If you spend too many hours acting as an involuntary processing unit for everyone else's unrefined psychological baggage, your system begins to redline. You experience a deep, bone-weary exhaustion that sleep cannot fix. Solitude, therefore, becomes your medicine. You actively choose to sit alone in a quiet room, completely removed from human contact, because your nervous system desperately needs an environment where it is not being bombarded by the emotional static and manipulative undercurrents of society. This creates a distinct lifestyle pattern where you are frequently perceived as an enigmatic outcast or a lone wolf. You might have thousands of people who admire you or seek your counsel, yet you can count your true, intimate friends on one hand. You find yourself utterly incapable of participating in standard societal scripts, superficial small talk, or relationships built on transactional status. When you are forced to engage in polite, shallow pleasantries at a social gathering, it feels like a heavy psychological tax. Your brain seeks structural integrity and raw authenticity. It cannot thrive on a diet of plastic smiles and rehearsed social pleasantries. You would rather spend days in deep, uninterrupted isolation, engaging with nature, art, or deep intellectual pursuits, than spend a single evening navigating a room full of fragile egos performing for one another. You accept the label of being distant or hard to reach because you understand that your peace is non-negotiable. Your solitude is not a prison. It is a sacred boundary that allows you to clear the mirror of your mind, ensuring that when you do choose to step back into the world, your perception remains razor-sharp, unfiltered, and completely uncompromised. The fifth sign is the perspective inversion, an involuntary cognitive blueprint that forces you to perceive, analyze, and solve problems from a completely backward angle compared to standard societal conditioning. In the study of behavioral profiling, we notice that the vast majority of human beings are linear thinkers. They follow established cultural algorithms, respect traditional hierarchies, and accept consensus reality without deep interrogation. When a crisis occurs or a narrative is presented, the crowd moves in unison, thinking in predictable, forward-facing patterns. The Heyoka, however, operates from a state of perpetual cognitive subversion. Your brain is structurally incapable of following the herd. When everyone else is looking forward, focusing exclusively on the superficial symptoms of a problem, you are instinctively looking backward, tracing the invisible systemic flaws, historical patterns, and hidden psychological motives that created the crisis in the first place. This makes your perspective fundamentally contrarian, allowing you to see the chessboard of life 3 moves ahead of everyone else, while simultaneously making your insights deeply uncomfortable for conventional minds to digest. This inverted cognitive processing manifests most clearly during moments of high environmental stress or sudden crisis. When a group is hit with an unexpected panic, and standard human behavior dictates a reaction of fear, frantic movement, or emotional paralysis, the Heyoka experiences a strange, counterintuitive psychological phenomenon. Your nervous system drops into a state of profound, absolute stillness. Your heart rate slows, your field of vision widens, and you become the calmest person in the room. While others are drowning in the emotional static of the moment, you are quietly observing the micro-behaviors of the participants, effortlessly tracking the structural reality of the situation and identifying the hidden opportunity that the panic has exposed. Conversely, when the group is blindly celebrating a superficial victory, indulging in premature optimism, or rallies around a charismatic but fraudulent leader, you are the one sitting quietly in the corner, experiencing a deep sense of caution. You instantly see the fragile assumptions, the logical fallacies, and the impending structural failure that the crowd's collective ego is ignoring. You are the psychological dampener to their hysteria and the cold wake-up call to their complacency. This backward perspective also dictates how you deliver guidance and heal the individuals within your radius. You do not use standard, linear advice-giving methods because you understand that telling someone what to do rarely bypasses their ego's defense mechanisms. Instead, you use subversion. If someone comes to you complaining about a toxic relationship while playing the absolute victim, you might completely catch them off guard by agreeing with their flaws or highlighting how their own behavior invited the dynamic. If an individual is paralyzed by an intense fear of failure, instead of offering empty, positive platitudes, you might force them to map out the absolute worst-case scenario in meticulous, brutal detail until their brain realizes the absurdity of the fear. You treat the psychological affliction by tilting the world upside down, forcing the individual to look at their reality from an angle so completely foreign that their traditional cognitive defenses are utterly useless against it. You accept the reality that this way of thinking will often cause you to be misunderstood, mislabeled as a pessimist, or viewed as a disruptive contrarian,